Hi, I'm Scott Bogren, Editor-in-Chief of Digital Community Transportation Magazine,
I'm Rich Sampson, and I'm editor.
and we'd like to welcome you to this edition of our publication focused on communications in all of its forms. This is an edition of the magazine that's kind of near and dear to both Rich and my heart because it's something that we're always working in and around how to better communicate and really message when it comes to local community and public transportation systems. And we're going to do a quick run through of a lot of what's in this edition, and I'm sure that you'll find a lot of value if you take the time to really delve into this communications edition of Digital CT.
Yeah, and we start off with a look at a topic of communications that applies to different levels of community, which is how transit and mobility is part of the infrastructure network. And you hear people making arguments of whether service is infrastructure. We're here to make the case that it very much is, and it really is fundamental to creating quality of life and community. So that's kind of our first from the communities piece that we have in this edition. And then we have a much more specific, tailored, on-the-ground example of going through a rebranding process for regional transit in the Little Rock, Arkansas region, and kind of how the community input process works and how they came up with the vision before they'd made any decisions on what logos look like or what the name was. Really kind of focuses on the process behind all that.
We really feature in this edition of the magazine as well, we're kind of introducing a new service from the association, our communications core, which really consists of Rich, myself, and Tony Frederick, who is not on the screen here, but who does a lot of the work behind the scenes on the technology and on the web and the way we deliver this digital publication. And what we're doing here is really announcing that we're here to help you. That as you read through this edition of the magazine, when you see your system, your agency, your community, your colleagues in this, and you wonder, boy, we would really like to do a new logo or a rebranding, or we'd like to just sit and strategize about, we're here to help. And you'll see throughout the edition of the magazine, you'll see areas in which you can click and send a message to me. And we'll get in touch with you and can work through some of these communications issues. Some of the topics, or really the products within the communications core that we've already set up and are ready to help you with, are important things like crisis communications. How do I talk about mission and the values of an organization? What are the planning? How do we do a real communications plan that coincides with the agency's goals and objectives? We also talk about how we can work with vendors on analyses of the industry so vendors can better understand kind of who and what. Social media, we can look at your website. There's all sorts of things we can do, and we've also set this up so it's very malleable. We can deliver communications assistance to you based on what your needs are. So throughout this edition, keep the communications core here at CTA in mind as we move forward. One of the pieces as well that follows up to that is where I kind of talk about what I've put together as my 6 steps to get to a good communications plan. And it's one of the things that we can, as a communications core, really take you through back at your agency. But it talks about how to assess your goals and objectives, the individuals and organizations that can help you reach those goals, merging that together. And it's a 6-step process that's really pretty simple and usually entails about an hour of your time a week. And I'm sure, and I've seen this in communities around the country, that if you can commit to that, the 6-step process will really allow you to see great success in your communications at your agency.
And one of the tools that is part of kind of a communication strategy is digital communications and getting your word out through a wide variety of electronic and digital media. Not necessarily just a publication like the one you're reading right now, but a multifaceted campaign that really actually takes advantage of some of the equipment and software that you already probably have, or if you don't have it, it's probably free, that makes your case a little more easy and also accessible to a wider audience who are increasingly getting their information through the internet or social media, those types of things. So we kind of go through a very accessible, adaptable approach to digital publications, digital communication. That we follow that up with a look at three kind of prevailing myths about public and community transportation: that nobody rides it, that it's unsafe, that it's for somebody else. We kind of go through some of this mythology and explain why people think that to begin with, and then how you can counteract some of these perceptions. And we give some examples from systems across the country, and also just reinforcing that responding in general is the best way to get out ahead of these things, and not just kind of let these perceptions and myths grow and without some kind of response to them. And then that's followed by a look at what is the communications role of a board and to a board of a transit or mobility service. How do you get your board members to be effective advocates for your system, but also how do you communicate with your board members on what their responsibilities and duties are as part of that group? So we have three different examples from communities of all sizes and locations across the country to kind of give some very practical and understandable tips for transit managers, but also members of boards. It's an adaptable piece for both those audiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the boards can be so critical in that. And we also, near the end of the edition, we offer kind of an addendum to something we published a couple years ago, but that is still very valid, which is teaching you how to actually communicate with elected officials. And we've added the idea of how to communicate with businesses and in your community, and how to communicate with healthcare facilities, hospitals, clinics, how to do that. And in this case, like this video, we use videos to really show exactly how we think you can go about improving your communications abilities with these key constituents. Because again, communications is great, and we're advocates for it. We think it can be very powerful, but it has to have a direct connection to an outcome that the agency is seeking. You got to have communications just for the communication's sake means nothing. Mm-hmm. Communications that are tied to what you want to achieve in the community, at your mobility service, or at your community or public transportation agency, that's when it's a tool to really achieve something. And if you take nothing else from this edition of the magazine, take that we are big believers in the vital importance of communications. We can help you do that, and that if you're not communicating in your community, somebody else is, and you're very likely not to like exactly what they are communicating about your service. So thanks as always for taking the time to read Digital Community Transportation Magazine. We always welcome your feedback, and you'll see our email and Twitter feeds as soon as this video ends that you can link in with us. And thanks again for being a reader.
Thanks, everyone.